I'm audible now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
audible now.
Okay. All right. So yeah, I was just talking about the features. All right. So you have like virtual machines. We call them as instances. You have pre-configured templates, which is the operating system. We have various configurations of your CPU, so you can choose how much of CPU you want, how much of memory you want, how much of um, RAM you want. All those things you can configure. And then how do we log in to this virtual machine? So we make use of your key pairs. So we will be talking about each of these in detail in the upcoming sessions. But these are generally your features when we talk about your EC2 instances. Any questions?
No.
no, no.
Okay. All right. So how do you work with the EC2 service? To work with your EC2 service, here you can go to your console. Let me log into my console. Now, your EC2 service is region specific, unlike your IAM, which is a global service. Your EC2 is a region specific service. Okay. What email did you use? Okay. So I'll go to the home page, and then from here we will navigate to the EC2 service. So either can go to the services, and under compute you have EC2 service, or you can simply search it from here, EC2. Okay, so that's the service. And when you open this up, so here you can see the region. So this is North Virginia, and this is also region specific. All right, so your EC2 service is region specific, and these regions are isolated from each other. So whatever, let's say if I launch a virtual machine in North Virginia, it will be available in North Virginia only. I won't be able to see that in the Ohio or North California or in the Oregon. So basically, in the other regions, I won't be able to see. So the resources, they are isolated from each other. Okay, keep that in mind. So at any point, if you're not able to see your instances, make sure you're in the right region. Okay. By default, when you go to the service, this is what you will see. This is the dashboard, as we call it. So here you can get an overview of how many instances you're running, your load balancers, your snapshots, your volumes, your key pairs, auto scaling groups, total instances you have. So all that information will be available for you. And then within a region, we have something known as your availability zones. Now, what are availability zones? These are nothing but your data centers. Your region is a geographic area for a collection of data centers. So your region is always a collection of data centers, and within the region, you have your sub regions, which we call it as your availability zone. So this is one data center, this is one data center, and then so on. Now, why do we have so many data centers? So simply to make your infrastructure highly available. So generally, when we talk about making your infrastructure or making your application highly available, we what we do is we generally divide our resources in multiple availability zones. So we'll have one instance running here, one over here, one over here, for example. Now, that way, what happens is if there's some issue with this availability zone, you still have this availability zone and the other availability zones from where you can access your application. Make sense?
Yeah, got it.
Okay. Now, here on the left hand side, right? So you have this EC2 global view. Now you can use this to see at a region level, at all in all the regions, like how many instances you have, how many volumes you have. If you want that information, you can make use of this EC2 global view. So how many enabled regions you have, how many total instances are running across the regions, right? So if you want to see that global view, you can make use of this option, which is your EC2 global view. So it's basically shows you the region resources that you are running in all of your regions. So as of now, you can see it is selling 0 in 0 regions. That means I don't have any instances running. How many subnets you have, your security groups, your volumes, all this information will be available for you. Come on, man, it is a little slow to take. Is my audio clear to you guys?
Yeah, this time it's better.
Okay. All right. So that's basically your global view. Next, you have your events. Now, events can be used to see if there's an issue. If there is any issue that is happening with your EC2 service, you will get that information over here. Okay. So as of now, there are no events in this region, but generally, what this events does is this gives you information about events that may include operational activities planned by AWS, such as instance reboots or some retirements of the instances. So any activity, any events that are planned by AWS, you will get notified in this space. So here you should be able to see that. And then you have the limits. Now, limits can be used to see what is the limitation. So, okay, so this has been deactivated. So this is same as your service quotas. All right. So what is service quota? So if you want to see what is the limitation, what is the default limitation you have for your AWS account, you can see that in the service quota. So the same, earlier we used to have this limits option. Now they have moved it to the service quotas basically. So that is simply your understanding what is the default limitation and how much you have utilized, whether it can be increased or not. All that information will be available for you. Any questions with any of these options?
All good.
Okay. All right. So next, we are going to talk about your instances. Now, what are instances? Instances are nothing but your virtual machines. The servers that we are going to launch, we call them as your instances. All right. So an instance is a virtual server in the cloud. And after you launch an instance, it looks like a traditional host. And you can interact with it as you would with any computer. So this is same as your machine, right? It's just that it's a virtual machine and you can start interacting with that same as how you interact with any computer. Okay, so you will have instances. You can become an admin, you can use some
Hello.
Yeah, again it's breaking.
Again, voice.
Oh,
your
uh, Rabi, we couldn't hear you.
okay.
Like when you started about the instances, so that is where we lost you.
Okay. Okay. Don't know. I mean, my internet was fine until now, but okay. Um, okay. So instances. So instances are nothing but your virtual machines. Okay. So this is nothing but your virtual server that you're going to run within the AWS cloud. And after you launch an instance, it looks like a traditional host. So like how we have a machine, how we set up a machine and we start interacting with that. The same way we can do with a virtual machine as well, right? So you will have the complete control over these instances. You can use sudo to run commands that require root privileges. You can connect to the machines as an administrator, user who has complete access. So all those things can be done. You will have the complete access. Okay. Now, generally, when we talk about your instances, we have something known as a pricing model. We will be talking about your pricing model later on, but for now, I will quickly show you how you can launch your virtual machines. All right. Now, here, this is a different, or I should say, this is an old way of launching your virtual machine. So earlier we used to have this step-by-step process that we could follow to launch the virtual machine, but recently AWS has changed it. But these are the different components you will have. You'll have the AMI, which is nothing but your operating system. You have the instance type, which is nothing but your capacities, how much CPU you want, how much RAM you want. Configure details will be your networking settings. Storage will be your physical storage, so how much of physical storage you want. Tagging is nothing but it's just a metadata that you provide, like a key value. Security groups will be your firewall, so what all traffic you want to allow, what all traffic you don't want to allow, that you can configure. Key pairs will be your login information. So generally, let's say your laptop. Now when you want to connect your laptop, you have your username and your password, right? Likewise, we also have something known as your key pairs, which makes use of a public key and a private key to connect to the servers. So by default, your EC2 instances uses key pairs. It does not support username password authentication by default. All right. So it uses these key pairs to connect to the machines and then finally launch, which will go ahead and launch your EC2 instance. So here for now, all right, let me quickly show you how you launch your EC2 instance. So when you come to this instances step, if you don't have any instances, this will be empty. But if you have any instances, it will show you the instances that are running here. In our case, we don't have any instances running. So to launch your instances, you can click on launch instances and you start filling in the details. So the first thing you have is your name and tags. Now, this is optional, but it is highly recommended. Now, what are tags? Like I said, these are nothing but your metadata. Now, assume you have 10 instances. All right. Now, how do you differentiate which instance is for what purpose? So maybe let's say you have instance 1, which is for Java application, instance 2 for Python application, instance 3 for Ruby application. Likewise, different servers. Now, how do you differentiate which server is for what purpose? So we can give something known as your metadata or additional information. All right. So here we can give something like, let's say, new server. So this is user defined. You can give whatever you want. And if you want to add additional tags, you can always add additional tags. So this is a key value pairing. So you give a key and a value to it, and it's up to you. It's user defined, so you can give whatever you want. All right. Then comes your AMI. Now, AMI, it stands for Amazon Machine Image. And like I said, this is nothing but your operating system. So what operating system do you want to use for the virtual machine? So you have Amazon Linux, you have Mac OS, you have Ubuntu, you have Microsoft Red Hat. So likewise here, you should be able to see different AMIs. And if you want to see more AMIs, you can see that also. So we'll talk about more about your AMIs later on. But sorry, but this is where you should be able to see all the AMIs. Now, in our case, we are going to use this Amazon Linux AMI. All right. Now, I told you earlier, right? Not everything is free in AWS, right? So these AMIs, like for example, if you go with Mac OS, this is chargeable. You'll have to pay money for this. So make sure when you're selecting these AMIs, you see this free tier eligible. Okay, so this means we don't have to pay any money for using this OS. Okay, so in this case, again, under Amazon Linux, these are the different options you have. And you can see here this one, deep learning AMI GPU. So basically this will have your PyTorch GPU installed on them. Likewise, this has TensorFlow. This has SQL Server by default installed on them, and you have to pay money for this. So you can see this does not have free tier eligible, whereas this one shows free tier eligible, this one shows free tier eligible, and this one also shows free tier eligible. So anything that does not show free tier eligible, you have to pay money for that. So we'll go with this Amazon Linux 2023 AMI. Any questions?
No.
Oh,
Okay. Then, so this will be your architecture. architecture. So like, you want to use ARM processor or Intel processor. So what do you want to use? In our case, we are going the Intel processor. And this is the AMI ID. So every AMI has an AMI ID associated with that, and that's what you see here. Next comes your instance types. Now, instance types is basically what defines your CPU and your RAM capacity. So how much of CPU you want, how much of RAM you want, you can decide that by making use of this instance types. So here you can see, so you have T2.nano, which gives you one vCPU, which is a virtual CPU, and this is your RAM. So 0.5, which is basically 500 MB of RAM capacity. You have T2.micro, which gives you one CPU core, 1 GB RAM. T2.small, which gives you one CPU core, 2 GB RAM. Likewise, you have different capacities. So you can see 4.large, which gives you 2 CPU core, 3.75 GB RAM. You have C4.4X large, which gives you 16 CPU cores, 30 GB RAM capacity, and then so on. So based on your requirement, based on your use case, you will be selecting different instance types. Now, under the free tier, we have only one option, which is your T2.medium. Okay, any other options you will select, you'll have to pay much. You can see free tier eligible, the others are not eligible, and you have to pay extra money for that. So by default, when you are launching your instances, T2.micro will be selected. If you select any other option, you'll have to pay money even under the free tier. So we'll talk more about this, but that's what your instance types is. So basically, defining your CPU capacity, your RAM capacity, we can do that using your instance types. Questions?
No.
Oh no.
Okay. Then comes your key pair. So I told you that, to log into your instances, by default, we make use of your key pair authentication. So AWS by default uses your key pair for the authentication purpose. It does not support your username and password by default. Okay, so to begin with this, by default, you will not have any key pairs and you need to create a new key pair. So to create your key pairs, here you can click on this create new key pair and you can give a name to this. So any name, so let's say test. And these are the two types you have. So these are basically your algorithms. You have RSA tokens, RSA keys, and you have this ED25519 keys. And then your key format, so you can either make use of your .pem file or .ppk file. So there are different ways that you can connect to the server. You can use different tools to connect to the server. So one is your OpenSSH, which is basically your command line, and then you have a tool called putty. I'll show you both, but for now we are going with this .pem file. We will be downloading this .pem file. So when you click on create key pair, what this will do is this will download a file for you. So it will have your .pem extension. So something like this one. Okay, so you can see this is a key that I've already created. So new underscore key .pem. That means it's a key pair. So any key pair, it has a .pem extension. Now you'll have to, once you create that, you should be able to see that key pair. So you can see in my case, it does not show the key pair. So I'll have to basically create a new one. So let's say test key and then create key pair. So this will create a key pair and download a PEM file for me. So you can see here test underscore key dot PEM. That's my key pair. And here I should be able to see that key pair. Questions?
No.
No.
Then comes your network settings. Now by default, when you create your AWS account, AWS will create one default network for us. We call that as a default VPC. We will be talking about this later on. But here, when you click on edit, you should be able to see. So as of now, we have only one VPC, which is the default VPC. So we'll cover your VPC later on. Then comes your availability zone. So remember, I spoke about your availability zone. So here, you should be able to see in which availability zone you want to launch the instance. Now, if you go with no preference, AWS will select one availability zone for you. If not, if you want to select one availability zone, you can select. That's up to you. Then auto assign public IP. So depending on the instance that you're launching, okay, if you want to have a public IP for the server, you can enable it, and if you disable it, the instance will not have a public IP address. Again, we will be talking more on this later on. Then comes your firewall. Now, think of it like this. You have your house, right? And your house has a main door. Now, the whole purpose of the main door is to basically protect who can, as to control who can get in the house and who can go out of the house. The same way you have your security group, which can be used to control what traffic can come inside the server and what traffic can go outside of the server. So here we'll give a name to this. So let's call this as custom security group, and we'll give a description to this, right? And then comes your rules. Now, generally, when we talk about your security group, so we have something known as your rules. So we have inbound rules and outbound rules. Again, we will be talking more on this later on. And depending on the AMI you have selected, you will be adding the rule. Now, generally, when we talk about your Linux server, if you want to connect to the server, at least you will need to have SSH. So SSH is basically what we use to connect to the virtual machines, right? So here you will need to allow at least SSH in order to connect to this server. Okay, if not, you won't be able to connect to the server. So by default, you can see. So here you can see this different uh, types. So you have SSH, you have HTTP, HTTPS, you have MySQL, you have RDP, you have PostgreSQL. So you have different options. Again, we will be talking more on this later on. So for now, we have SSH. Protocol will be TCP by default. Port range will be 22, which is the default SSH port number, and then your source type. So from where do you want to allow the traffic? So my IP would be, the IP that is currently assigned to me. Okay, so which is this one. That means I can connect to the server only from this IP address. Then I have custom, where I can manually enter an IP address. So from where do you want to allow? So I'm telling any IP address from this range. And then finally, anywhere, meaning it is open to any traffic. So anywhere in the world, any network I'm connected to, I can SSH to this server. Okay. And then you can give a description. So allow SSH access. Now, important point to remember, at an organization level, we never do this. It's a security violation. You should never be using 0.0.0.0/0. It is always restricted. So you'll always go with the custom option, where you will be manually giving the IP address. Again, we will be talking more on this later on. But any questions with this?
No, Ravi.
All good.
All right. And then comes your storage. So what is the physical capacity or physical storage you want to allow? By default, it gives you 8 GB, and there are different types you have under this. Again, we will talk about this in some time. But sure, you can basically give how much of physical storage you want, 10, 20, 30. Now, under the free tier, you get 30 GB of your storage capacity. So under the free tier, you can allocate up to 30 GB. Above that, you'll have to pay money. Now, for our use case, 8 GB is sufficient, so we'll go with 8 GB. Then under the advanced details, you have few more options. I'm not going to go over everything, but I want to talk about one option, which is a user data. Now, any idea what is a boot up script?
No.
Okay. So boot up script is nothing but it's a set of commands that gets executed when you start the system, when you start the server. So the script will get executed automatically.
Okay.
Okay, that is when you're starting the system, and if you want to automatically execute some commands, we make use of your boot up script. So that boot up script here, we call it as your user data. So if I give some instructions over here, these instructions will get executed automatically when my server is launched. For example, let's say you want to install Java, or you want to install Python, or you want to start some service or deploy some application. You can automate that by making use of this user data. So I'll show the example later on, but that's what your user data is. And then you can specify how many instances you want to launch, 1, 2, 3, basically number of instances you want. You get to review everything and then click on launch instances, and this will begin launching your EC2 instance. So here, if I click on view all instances, I should be able to see my instance. So you can see here this name. So this is the tag I was talking about. This is empty. Now it is difficult for me to say what is the use of this, what is the purpose of this server. So this is where we can make use of your tags. Right. So here, if I give something like, let's say test server. So it's easier for me to say what is the purpose of this server. So now my instance is running. That means my server is ready to use. Any questions until here?
No.
So this is how you launch your servers. It could be a Linux, Windows, Mac OS, whatever it is, but this is how you launch the servers in EC2. Now, when we talk about this instance state, there are different instance states associated with this. The first time when you launch the instance, it will be in the pending state. Then it will transition to running state. So pending means your server is being prepared. It is still, running something in the background, so it is not yet ready. Running means the server is ready to use. You can start interacting with the server. Now, from running, there are two things you can do. You can either stop the server or you can terminate the server. Now, can you tell me what is the difference between stop and terminate here?
Stop is like,
Any idea?
stop, like, it'll be stopping the server for a certain time. Terminate in the sense, like, are we going to delete the server or something? I'm not sure.
Okay. Yeah, so see, generally stop means I'm going to stop the server and then I can start it once again. Right? So I can reuse it. But terminate means I'm completely destroying the server, right? I won't be able to use it once again.
Oh, perfect.
So yeah, so here what you can do is, so either you can choose to you can stop the server, you can terminate the server. If you're going to stop the server, it will transition to stopping and then finally stop. Okay, and if it is terminating, it will change to shutting down and then it will transition to terminated. All right, so this will be the life cycle of your EC2 instances. All right, so once again, the first time when you launch the instance, it will be in the pending status. Now from pending, it will transition to running. So that means the server is ready to use. Okay. Now, once it is running, you can do two things. You can either stop the server or you can terminate the server. Stop means you're telling that I will be using this later on. So I'll just go and stop the server. Terminate means you're destroying the server. You're telling I don't want the server. Go ahead and destroy it. So if you are going to stop it, it will change to stopping and then finally stop. And if it is terminated, it will transition to shutting down and then finally terminated. So here you can see the status, it says running. That means my server is ready to use. Now here you should be able to see the instance ID. So every time you launch your instance, there is a unique instance ID associated with it. There's an instance type, in which availability zone it is running, then your public IP or private IP, then you can see your security group name, your key name, when the server was launched. All this information will be available for you. And here at the bottom also, you should be able to see some information. So your instance ID, the public IP address, the private IP address, instance state. You can see your instance type, then what is the VPC, which subnet, then OS, AMI ID, when this was launched. All this information will be available for you. So what key pair we are using for this instance, then you should be able to see your security related information. So which security group you have attached, what are the rules you are allowing, then networking. So basically your public IP, private IP, your network, subnet, all that information will be available here. This will be your storage. So how much of storage you have allocated. So by default 8 GB is what I have allocated. This will be your status check. So this is the overall health of your server. Okay, so as of now you can see it is still showing initializing. That means my overall health is not yet known. This is important. Sometimes what happens is this also creates a problem for your instances. So generally this should be in good status. Then you have monitoring. So monitoring your CPU utilization, your network in, network out, then your disk utilization, all that metrics will be available here. We'll talk about this later on. And this will be your tag. So any tags you have created, it will be available here. Questions?
No.
No, all good.
Okay. Now, once you're done launching your instances, the next step would be to connect to these instances. Now, how do we connect to these instances? Like I said, there are two ways you can connect to these instances. You can either make use of your command line, like your command prompt or terminal or PowerShell, or you can make use of some tools like PuTTY, for example. So first, I'll show you the command line, and then I'll show you how you can use the PuTTY to connect to the server. Now, both are used to connect to the server. It's just that there are two different ways. So if if you're not comfortable using the CLI, you can make use of the PuTTY. But ideally, both are used to connect to your servers. Okay. Now, first I'll show you the command line. Now, the syntax would be SSH-I, your key pair, then your public IP or IP address at this will be username at IP address. This will be the syntax. Now, if you're on your Windows machine, and if you're on like Windows 10 or something like that, by default, you will have SSH installed. Now, to confirm if you have SSH or not, you can either open up your command line, or you can open up your PowerShell, and you can simply type in SSH and hit enter. If you see this output, that means you have SSH. If you don't have SSH, then you will need to install it. Can you guys quickly confirm if you have SSH on your machine?
I have to download.
Okay, Bharat?
Even I need to download.
Okay, so you don't get any output when you hit SSH?
No, it's not recognized as an internal or external command. It's coming.
Okay, so if you don't have SSH, one option we have is we can use this tool called Git Bash, which gives you SSH. So what you can do is you can download Git. So Git-SC. Okay, you should be able to use this link, and so here when you go to that link, by default in your case, if you're on Windows machine, you should be able to say download for Windows and click on download. Okay, one of you can share your screen and we'll quickly go over that.
Okay, sure. I'm sharing.
Okay. Yep. Yeah, so click on download for Windows. So this will download your exe, 64-bit. Yeah. So this should download the exe file. Just wait for that to complete, and once it is done, you can start installing it. So now you can start running that. Yeah, next. So all you have to do is just click on next. That's it.
Uh,
Yeah, so this should install your Git tool for you.
so after installing, I have to run this, this command, is it?
No, not required.
Okay.
So it should have installed. Yeah, just click on finish. So this will open up, and same as your terminal command line, this will open up a terminal like this. Now here you can use this SSH. So type in SSH and hit enter. So you should have your SSH, right? So now you can start using this to connect your machine. So basically, you will need to have SSH in order to connect to your EC2 instance, Linux instances using command line. You need to have this SSH. Okay, Bharat, clear?
Yeah, it's clear.
Okay. Okay, you can stop sharing your screen, and I'll take it from there. All right. So let me share. Yeah. So now this will be your command. So SSH -I, which is basically your identity. So remember, I told you EC2 by your Linux machines by default uses key pairs. So -I is to specify the identity and then the key pair associated with the server. Now, one way is if you're already in the location where your key pair is available. So in my case, the key pair is available in my downloads. So here, okay, so this is where my key pair is available. Now, if you're in a different location, so one option you have is you can either go to that location. So you can see, you can do a CD and then the location. Okay, tell me, are you guys comfortable with your Linux environment?
Yeah, kind of okay.
Yeah, Linux is better.
Yeah, but are you comfortable with the commands?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm,
So
I'm
ideally, what?
okay. I can
Okay,
understand.
okay, fine. So ideally, what you have to do is you have to basically, one option you have is you have to be in that location where your PEM file is available. Or it's if you, even if you're not there, it's fine. However, your command will slightly change. In that case, what will happen is here you'll have to give the path to your PEM file where the PEM file is available. Okay. So in my case, the command would be SSH-I test_key.pem. The username. So depending on the AMI you select when you're launching the instances. So depending on the AMI that you select, your username, you'll have a default username associated. If you're using Amazon Linux AMI, your default username will be EC2-user. If you're using Ubuntu, your username by default will be Ubuntu. So in my case, I have launched Amazon Linux AMI, so my username will be EC2-user at the IP address. Now, if you have launched an instance which has a public IP address, we can use the public IP address. So we'll take this IP address and we will provide that here. So this will be my command. I'll take this command, I'll enter here. Now, provided your firewall is set properly. Okay, so that is, you have to allow at least SSH, and we are allowing it from anywhere. If this is configured properly, when you hit enter, it should prompt you this one. So the first time, if you're connecting the machine for the first time, it will prompt you for this. Like, are you sure you want to connect? So we'll type in yes, which will confirm, and then hit enter, and this will, ideally, it should connect to the machine. Now, if you get this error, telling bad permissions, permission denied, The reason you get this error is because the PEM file is having too many permissions. So you can see it says unprotected private key file. Permissions are too open. So basically, you need to restrict the permissions to your file. For that, you can. Guys, am I audible to you?
Yeah.
Yes, yes, audible.
Let's start. So for that, if you get that error, you just have to run this command. So you can run this chmod 400 and your PEM file. So what this will do is, this will give you read permission only on this PEM file. So that error should be gone. Okay, so I'll take this command and we'll run this in the server. And then we'll retry the SSH command. And now we should connect to my virtual machine. So I am connected to my virtual machine. So Amazon Linux 2023, that's my username. And here is a private IP address, 172.31.92.94. So here you can see 172.31.92.94. That means now I'm connected to the virtual machine. Questions?
No.
So one question, like, you said for Amazon Linux, you get the username as EC2 user, right? So how will I find it? How will I know, like, if I'm new to it, and then how will I find the?
This will be there in the documentation, AWS documentation.
Okay, not.
Let me see. Such client. This is not showing, but it's somewhere in the documentation. I'll have to find out, but it's part of the documentation itself.
No problem. Like, even if you Google, I think we should be able to find it soon.
Yeah. Should be able to get it. Yes. Okay, so but yeah, basically this is one way for you to connect to the EC2 instance, Linux virtual machine. Any questions until here?
No.
No.
Okay. Now the other way, if you're not comfortable using SSH command line, you have other option as well. It is using a putty tool. You can use some kind of a tool, a UI based tool, and you can use that also to connect to the virtual machine. Do you guys have 5 minutes? Can we extend by 5 minutes?
Sure.
Yes, we can extend it. Yes, we can extend it.
Okay, thank you. So now one of you can share your screen, and I'll quickly walk you through how you can use putty to connect to the EC2 instance.
Sure. Do I have to download putty? Hello.
Yeah. Sorry, yeah. Download putty, and then the first one, download putty. and you can go with the 64-bit. At the top itself, you have 64-bit. Yeah, that one.
Okay.
So this will download the installer, and you just have to run this.
Okay.
So this, once you install this, it will give you two things. Okay, so this will install Putty. Now, if you click on your start button and search for Putty, you will see two things. One is the Putty app, and the other is a Putty Gen.
Okay.
Okay. Now, by default, your Putty does not support PEM files.
Okay.
Okay. So you will need to make use of your PPK files. So remember, during the keeper creation, we saw PEM and PPK, right?
Two
So
yeah.
if you're sure that you want to use Putty, then you can directly download the PPK file. If not, you will need to convert the PEM file to a PPK file.
Okay.
So to convert the PEM file to PPK file, you can make use of the Putty Gen.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah, open up Putty Gen. One moment. Open up Putty Gen. Yeah, so here it will ask you for load. Okay, so when you click on load, you will need to basically provide the PEM file that you have downloaded.
Okay.
Okay, so in case you have downloaded the PEM file, you can provide that and open it up.
Mm-hmm.
Once you open it, you cancel this.
Okay.
You will see that the option below that, save private key, that will be enabled.
Okay.
So you just have to click on that save private key, which will basically ask you to save that. So basically a PPK file will be created with this tool. Now, once the
Okay.
PPK file is created, you can open up the other tool, which is Putty.
Okay.
And now can you open up Putty? Yeah. So
Yeah.
now here first it will prompt you for the host name, which is nothing but your IP address. So you can give the
Okay.
IP address here.
Okay.
Port will be 22, so you're not changing that. Next, on the left hand side, you can see SSH drop down kind of a thing on the left hand side on the dashboard. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Click on that plus symbol. And then you
Yeah.
see auth. Click on auth.
Okay.
Yeah. So here, no, wait, hold on. Auth. Where is it not showing it? Okay, it's interesting. Click on credentials below auth.
Yeah.
Below auth. Yeah. Okay. So you see that private key file for authentication.
Yeah.
So the PPK file that you would have created, you will need to upload that here.
Okay.
Okay. So once you give that and then click on open, it will try connecting to your virtual machine. It will
Okay.
prompt you for the username, which
Okay.
will be your EC2-user. And
Mhm.
once you give that, it will connect to your so basically whatever you're seeing on the command line, the same screen you will
Okay.
see, but this time using the Putty tool.
Okay. So whenever it's in the PEM format, I have to use this Putty Gen. But if it is PPK file, I can directly connect or what?
Yes,
Okay.
you can directly connect. Okay.
So which is more convenient, and then what to in every organization, what do they prefer? I mean,
Yeah, so see, it depends on the organization. In one of the previous organization, they were using Putty, but in the current organization, we are free to use whatever we want. So it's basically our choice. But in some cases, it will be restricted. Like the organization or the project has a
okay.
standard procedure that they follow.
Okay.
So you will have to follow the same thing. But in most of the cases, it's free. You get to decide on what option you want to use. Like in my case, I prefer using the command line, SSH command line. So you will see me using SSH very often to connect to the virtual machines. But again, it's a personal choice. You can choose what you want to use.
So SSH in the sense like Git, right? The application we installed previously, Git bash.
If by default you don't have SSH, that's when you will be using this Git bash.
Okay.
But like I said, if you're on Windows 10 or Windows 11, by default you should have SSH installed on it.
Okay.
Only if you don't have it, then you can. This is an alternate option you have.
Okay. Perfect.
Okay, so that's basically how you can connect to your Linux machines. Tomorrow I'll show you a small example as to what we can do on this Linux machine. Like, what's the purpose of this? We will look at that. So we'll set up a small web application on this, and we'll try accessing that web application. Okay, but ideally this is the whole purpose of your EC2 service. All right.
Okay.
Launching virtual machines, and then the next step would be to deploy, host, and deploy your applications on these EC2 instances. Okay. Any questions until here?
No.
Okay, so that's it for today. So tomorrow we'll continue from here. We'll talk more on this. We'll also see how you can launch your Windows machine and then connecting to the Windows machine. I'll show that also, and then we'll look at the other topics. All right.
Okay. Okay.
All right. Thanks, guys. I'll see you tomorrow then.
Thanks. Thank you.